Hello, Carrera Go fans. This is going to be episode 5 of my series on powering your Carrera Go track. If you haven't seen the previous 4 episodes, I recommend watching them because they'll give you some more detailed information. But I'm going to kind of try to catch you up a little bit here and then show you the new information that I've learned. First of all, when most of us buy a new Carrera set these days, you end up getting this generation of power track. This one here has the horizontal inputs, and like I said, this is the current generation that's available whenever you buy a set. Now, this generation of track is a big change from their previous ones, and I guess the best way to describe it is that this is a digital unit, and that your controllers are digital controllers. And I believe the way the system is working is that your controller is just sending a little digital signal to the power track, and there's some IC circuits and stuff in here, really difficult to modify for me anyway. And evidently it takes that control signal and tells the circuitry inside here just how much power you're wanting to apply to the track. And because of that, it's not really, like I said, it's not really easily modifiable, and I couldn't do anything with it. And when I started trying to run these generic cars, these various generic cars from AliExpress, as well as a couple of some of the Carrera cars that were made to run on battery power. They have a different impedance of motor. They were causing this power track to shut down. And so you'd be able to run a few laps, and I guess the thermal overload protection in here or whatever would shut the track down. And it was really disappointing because with these generic cars, they have bigger magnets in them and they stick to the track better. So they're good for kids, or really especially good for if you're racing by yourself. You can set these up as drone cars, and they'll go around pretty fast by themselves, and you can race them with a Carrera car. But so long story short, I was trying to figure out a way to solve that problem. I had this track, I had a few of these cars, and it just wasn't quite working out. So I had bought a few used track sets. One of them came with this older style of power track, like this one here that has 4 vertical inputs on it, and 2 of them are for power. They actually split the power between the 2 lanes. One power goes to one lane and the other power goes to the other lane, and then your power transformer has 2 outputs on it, so you can actually separate the power. Well, I found that using this one, I had less trouble with the track shutting off. And during all this experimentation, I kept increasing the size of my tracks, both of the 1/43rd tracks that I have. I kept increasing their size. And I mentioned a few times that as I've been increasing the size of the track, the power system is not shutting off quite as quickly or not as much or whatever. I was getting a little bit better luck. The bigger the track got, the longer I was able to run these generic cars before they'd shut off the track. Well, it still wasn't perfect, and I wanted to at least be able to get a 5-minute race or so out of it before it shuts down. And I found on a German website how to modify this particular track to take out the thermal overload protection. And when I did that, I was able to run any kind of car I wanted to run, no problems. Then I got a couple of these adjustable power supplies and hooked them up instead of the standard transformer from Carrera, and then I can adjust the voltage individually between the two lanes, which really is helpful because now I can adjust the speed of the drone car against the car I'm racing it. So at that point, I had everything working pretty much the way I like it. I can run drone cars, I can run any brand of cars, all is good, and everything seemed to be just fine. But I wanted to show once again how this particular power track shuts down when you use it with the generic cars, and I started trying to run it, and I realized that what I had been saying earlier about how as the track gets bigger and bigger, you have less and less problems. Well, basically, I got to the point now that this track is big enough that there's enough voltage drop on it that I can run these generic cars, and they don't shut the track off using this current system. So that basically brings me to the main summary, I guess, of this, is that when your track gets big enough, once you've got enough track, I'm going to guess there's about 60 feet here. Once you get somewhere around in there, and of course it's going to depend on your setup and how dense and how many curves and how fast the track is and how much you're hitting the turbo button and all that. But eventually you get to a point where the track is big enough and long enough that this power track doesn't shut off when using the generic cars. So that brings me to a whole nother experiment now. Because with this digital unit, obviously I don't have adjustable power. So the next step is going to be to take two of these. I'm going to have one here just like this. I'm going to put the other one right here. And I'm going to use the individual power transformers from each one, but only plug one controller into each side. So I'll have a right controller on one side, and I'll be using a left controller over here on this other one, or vice versa. And then I should be able to do the same thing I did with this other track, attach a couple of these power supplies in there instead. I've got a couple on order, so they'll be coming soon. So I'll be able to attach a couple of those adjustable power supplies to these digital type tracks. And I've got a feeling I'm going to be able to make this work too. The big question now is going to be, with digital circuits, when you drop their voltage down too low, eventually they quit working. It's just not enough power to operate the circuit. So we're going to have to see, just how low can I adjust the voltage down on those before it shuts off the power track itself, just from lack of voltage. Also, I'm curious as to how much voltage can I give it. Can I crank it up over the 15 volts that the Carrera power supply provides without blowing up the power track? So we've got a couple of interesting experiments, I think, here. But like I said, the main thing to get from all this is that if you're using this original track, this original power track, and you want to be able to run generic cars, you probably have a chance of doing that once your track gets big enough. If the track's too small, then you'll have to probably go through the modifications that I showed with this earlier generation of power track. Anyway, I think that about sums it up. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section. And thanks for watching.